This week's bonus video is about Gary Coleman. This poor kid never really could catch a break. So let's take a look at his sad, turbulent, and tragic life. Once again, this channel is AI free. It is all just, as you see it, me talking into the camera. So I hope that you appreciate that. Once again, let's take a look at Gary Coleman. Hi everyone, bonus video. I'm going to talk a little bit about the tragic life of childhood star and different stroke star Gary Coleman. You might remember that we did Dana Plato a couple of weeks ago, and she was tragic and sad, and she's in my book. And Gary Coleman is also in my book, Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Still Dead, under the section Tragic Children. So I'm going to talk a little bit about Gary Coleman and the tragic stars all around in that show, Different Strokes. All three children ended up tragically, but Todd Bridges seemed to kind of straighten up. Before I do, if you like my content, please like and subscribe and leave a comment. It helps my page to grow, and please watch the videos because I need more watched hours. A lot of you watch maybe a minute or two and then that's it. So watch the videos because I have some surprises at the end usually. So anyway, thank you. So let's get into Gary Coleman. He was born in Chicago's South Side to a junkie and a homeless woman, and she gave him up for adoption. And because she had initially not taken care of him properly, he developed physical disabilities early on and was never healthy. No matter what happened, he was never healthy. So he was sick and in delicate health when he was cast on this show. But before that, he was sick and in delicate health. He was adopted by a normal family. They looked like good people, his parents. Later on, Gary Coleman would say that they stole all of his money from him, and he actually took them to court over it. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. I'm going to quote a passage from my book. Coleman, like I said, was born with health issues. He had two compromised kidneys, one barely functioning and one very compromised kidney. He would eventually end up with a double kidney transplant while he was on Different Strokes, which didn't seem to help because his health never was very good. It stunted his growth, so he was never able to grow to the height of a full-grown man, which shockingly worked to his advantage on a television show where he was required to be a child and childlike. And even when he was a teenager, he was still required to be childlike. The show was extremely popular. His character was the most popular because it juxtaposed a small cherub-looking child with these adult words that would come out of this child's mouth, and everybody thought it was funny, hilarious, and you juxtapose that with two African-American brothers who were adopted into a white family with a white sister, and it was pretty groundbreaking for the time, and it attracted a large audience, white and black, across the board. Watched this show. Everyone loved this show, and everyone particularly loved Gary Coleman, who's making at one point $100,000 an episode. So you can understand his dismay when he found out after the series ended that he didn't have any money in the bank whatsoever. So I'm just going to read this section to you from the book Tragic Hollywood, Beautiful, Glamorous, and Still Dead. What does a former child star do when he's short on cash and facing oblivion? The trust fund. Yes, of course. By California law, a child actor's earnings were required to be placed in a trust fund. This was a law that was put into place after Jackie Coogan's parents stole all of his money. He was a child star from the 1930s. And this is called Coogan's Law, I think. Parents. Too late for him, but great for all the child stars that came after, right? So Gary turned to his trusty fund for solace and support, only to get a rude shock when he went to make a withdrawal. By his calculations, there should have been around 18 million, but the actual sum was around 200,000.
Either someone skipped math class or someone had been robbed. Gary confronted the people who were responsible for managing the fund, his parents. There's that word again. And they told him, "You see, Gary, we had to hire a lot of people on your behalf to help manage your career. These people included lawyers, agents, publicists, and such. They didn't come cheap. We also had to pay ourselves a respectable salary, 20% of your net income, in order to maintain our and your current lifestyle." Then there was those real estate ventures, all done so you could have more money. Didn't exactly work out. So sorry, our bad. So, yeah, they kind of stole his money and he took him to court over it. And I think he won. But I mean, the money was gone at that point. So he didn't really have any more money. And he was kind of just sort of, yeah, and plus he had, these huge medical bills because of his failing kidneys and a plethora of other health issues. So, this kid was dealt a bad hand from the start, and it never really got better. The only time things got better for him was when he was working his ass off in this hit television series, in which the stress of working so much and for so long actually made his kidneys fail, so he had to get kidney transplants. That was his best years, and everything after that for Gary Coleman was just shit after that. In 1999, he filed for bankruptcy. In 1998, he was charged with assault for punching out a fan who recognized him and who asked for his autograph. She recognized him when he was doing his security job. He was a security guard. And he's trying to make a decent living, an honest living, like Dana Plato, working at the laundry. But she recognized him, and she asked for his autograph, and he told her to F off, and then she launched into a tirade of insults about how his career had gone into a steep decline, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So he punched her out, not more than once, but he punched her out a lot. Like, I think he hit her 20 times. So he was charged with assault, and he had to pay her medical bills, and he was given probation for that. So not a happy camper. He once auctioned off his pants because he was so short, chronically short on cash. He auctioned off a pair of his pants to pay some of his medical bills because he was in and out of the hospital all the time and chronically broke because his medical bills were so high. I really have a lot of compassion for Gary Coleman. At this point, it's just a matter of time. But I felt that he deserved a better break than what he got, and that he should have been better taken care of after different strokes by the network that made so much money off of him. They should have taken care of his medical expenses at the very least. Gary moved to Utah in 2005, probably to save money on expenses because it's so expensive to live in California, I know. And in 2007, he met a woman named Shannon Price. In 2008, they made a notorious appearance on divorce court, slinging accusations at each other. And so apparently, I guess they were divorced in 2008. Everybody thought they were divorced in 2008. And then, but apparently it was sort of like a couldn't live without you type of scenario. Plus, Gary genuinely needed somebody to help him because at this point, he was not functioning well. And it was clear that he needed more help than he was getting. Apparently, him and Susan were living together.
My bad, I meant him and Shannon.
At this point, when this thing happened to him, another fall downstairs. This one was longer stairs, more stairs. Him and Price were arguing, and I'm going to read this part in my book. On May 26, 2010, an emergency operator in Santaquin, Utah, answered a call from a panicked young woman who said her husband was lying at the base of their stairs with his head split open. "I don't know, there's blood everywhere. I'm not down there now because I get seizures, and if I get stressed out, I'm going to seize. Send someone quick because I don't know if he's going to be, alive." The operator asked the woman if the man is conscious, and she replied, "No, He was like bubbling at the mouth. This was after she had tried to go into a lengthy explanation about her own ailments and why she could not go down there and help him. The woman was Shannon Price. The sickening call went on for 6 minutes. Okay? The blood, I can't deal, Shannon replied. Only after Gary's managed to stagger to his feet and get himself to a chair did she finally go down and hand him a towel to place over his gaping wound on the back of his head. All this time, unfortunately, he was clearly unable to help himself. He can be heard repeatedly in the background asking, "What's wrong? What's wrong?" At one point, she told him to look at the floor, presumably where all of his blood was. He was so out of it that he didn't even know anything had happened, much less that he was dying. And he was dying. He would be dead in a couple of days. She pulled the plug on him, actually. He was on life support, and then within 2 days, Shannon pulled the plug on him. Then she got into a big court battle over the possession of his ashes. And his ashes, to this day, remain in a storage vault in a mortuary somewhere. He's never been buried. As I tried finding out whether or not he'd been buried. At this point, I can find no information that confirms that his remains have actually been buried. He was only 49 years old, so that's really sad about Gary. It really is a tragic, all of those, I think Todd Bridges was accused of murder at one point and was a drug addict. Dana Plato was on drugs and overdosed, and Gary Coleman died. Who knows what happened? Because she's still walking around, so we don't know what happened. But that's a sad story of Gary Coleman, and that will do it for this week's Star of the Week. Thank you, and I'll see you next week.